Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel, Turkish Spotlight Secrets. All the details are in this video. If you enjoy thoughtful deep dives into your favorite stars, please tap like, subscribe, and, if you want to support us a little extra, click the join button below. Thank you. Now let's watch my video. Today's story is about two names that consistently inspire headlines for more than their looks, Alp Navruz and Alina Boz. What fascinates fans isn't only the projects they choose or the awards they collect, it's the way they carry themselves, quiet, focused, and strangely synchronized even when their careers pull in different directions. Behind the glitter, there's a steady partnership built on trust, and in the last weeks that bond faced its biggest test yet, a generous offer placed softly on the table by Alp, and a firm, brave answer from Alina, no. Let's start with the rhythm that brought them here. On sets where the day begins before sunrise and ends when city lights blur, both actors cultivated reputations for discipline. Alp is the type who arrives early, walks the blocking twice, and asks the lighting team where he can stand to help the frame sing. Alina carries a paper script marked with tiny constellations of notes, every comma is a decision, every silence, a beat that must be earned. They've crossed paths enough to develop a professional shorthand, eyes up when a cue shifts, a tiny head tilt to signal a line adjustment, the shared instinct to raise the energy if the scene threatens to flatten. None of that is romantic by default, it's craft. But craft breeds respect, and respect can deepen into something harder to define and even harder to ignore. So when a famous film studio approached Alp with a prestige drama, a project with international money, a coveted director, and a release schedule designed to dominate festivals, the first thing he asked was not about billing or trailers. He asked whether Alina could read the script with him. The studio, aware of their screen magnetism and the clean credibility they bring, said yes faster than you can say contract. Within days, a polished PDF landed in her inbox. The story was tempting, two intersecting timelines, a flawed protagonist trying to repair an earlier mistake, and a female lead written with real agency instead of decorative lines between the hero's speeches. It had the smell of awards on the page, those projects actors describe as one for the soul. Alp, knowing the role could fit Alina like a hand-stitched dress, made a private call. No speeches, no pressure, just a quiet offer, if it moves you, I'll ask them to build around us both. That call traveled farther than he intended. Not to tabloids, at least not immediately, but through the small, loyal circle that often surrounds artists, an acting coach here, a dialogue consultant there, a manager who knows exactly how fragile a meaningful decision can be. Word reached fans as a rumor, Alp had the kind of part that can reframe a career, and he wanted Alina beside him. It sounded like a fairy tale designed for algorithms, until Alina read the script. Here's where the story bends. Alina, who has spent the last seasons avoiding the obvious next step in favor of risk, felt a stubborn tug in the opposite direction. The character was brilliant, the arc, satisfying, the dialogue, clean. But she had promised herself something quietly radical, to explore corners of the craft that bright studio lights often ignore. A one-room indie set, a director with a first feature, a role that might look small on paper but would demand a different muscle, one she hadn't used enough. She wanted the detour, not the highway. So she did the hardest thing actors do when a golden road opens. She said no. Not to Alp. Not to the film. To the version of herself who always chooses scale over surprise. She told him directly, deliberately, respectfully, I love that you thought of me. I'm grateful. But I need to test myself someplace where the stakes are artistic, not commercial. If I don't listen to that voice now, I might stop hearing it. There are a dozen ways a conversation like that can sour. Ego can enter the room through the smallest window, generosity can curdle into resentment when it isn't matched. That didn't happen here. Alp listened. He didn't bargain or rehearse a counterargument. He asked questions, the kind that show you're trying to understand rather than persuade. What kind of set are you craving? What scares you lately? What would make you feel like you've earned a rest at the end of the day? Then he did something that later made this story echo beyond their circle. He called the studio and withdrew his request to pair the roles, protecting Alina from any pressure and himself from any narrative that might frame her choice as a slight. When a friendship is real, the proof isn't the selfie on a red carpet, it's what someone does with your no. Alp took Alina's answer and turned it into architecture. He suggested 2 other names for the part, actors he respects, neither of whom would be labeled second choice if cast. He flagged a couple of scenes where the female lead could carry the emotional hinge rather than react to it, a note that earns you silent fans in editing rooms. Then he went back to training for his role, incorporating a physical discipline he hadn't used since his earliest years on screen. Meanwhile, Alina disappeared into workshops. Not glamorous ones with glossy behind-the-scenes packages, but rehearsals in spare rooms where performances grow without hashtags. She worked on micro-shifts of tone, practicing how to build a confession without touching the volume, how to signal a decision with a breath rather than a speech. She tested herself with a director who demanded retakes not because a line was wrong, but because the silence that followed didn't ring true enough. It's the kind of process that never trends until the results do. Fans, as fans do, filled the silence with theories. Some insisted that turning down a studio picture was a strategic mistake, that you don't say no when the world is ready to say yes. Others, especially those who follow Alina's interviews closely, recognized the pattern. She has always leaned toward projects that make her chase discomfort. A young actress choosing process over profile is risky. It's also how great careers are built. And what about Alp? Was his offer a gesture of love, a pure professional move, or both? The internet loves to force those choices. Life rarely does. Industry insiders noticed something else. By supporting Alina's detour, Alp gave the studio a blueprint for longevity: partner with artists who prioritize growth, not only visibility. That stance can be expensive in the short term, fewer magazine covers, maybe, but it compounds. When actors know you won't punish them for choosing the right risk at the wrong time, they circle back with loyalty you can't buy. What happened next felt like a reward for patience. At a private reading months later, unrelated to the original offer, a screenwriter handed Alina a draft with rough edges and a heart that beat on every page. It was a chamber piece with a 21-day shoot, 2 principal locations, and a role that required the kind of precise, interior work she'd been chasing. She said yes on the spot. When scheduling conflicts threatened to push the start, guess who offered to help broker the dates so she wouldn't have to choose between integrity and momentum? Alp. Not because cameras were watching, they weren't, but because this is what it looks like to like someone's future as much as you like their past. If you zoom out, the pattern is simple and rare. Alp made a generous offer. Alina made a brave refusal. Together, they converted what could have become friction into fuel. In an industry that sometimes mistakes display for depth, they selected the harder path. To let affection expand rather than constrain, to honor timing as much as talent, to understand that the best scene partners are the ones who clap for your solo even when they could have written themselves into it. Of course, headlines will still chase them. There will be premieres where they arrive on different carpets and interviews where friendly hosts try to bait a confession. There will be fans who prefer the fantasy where every admired pair must turn into a couple, and others who take comfort in a bond that doesn't need that label to matter. But here's the truth that keeps the air cool around them: you don't have to be everything to someone to be the person they call when a big choice knocks. So, what's next? Expect Alp to surprise with restraint in a role that could have gone loud. Expect camera operators to mention, off the record, that he finds his light without asking for more of it. Expect Alina to carry a film that would look small on a spreadsheet and feel enormous in a dark room. Expect critics to search for a trend where there is, in fact, a principle: say yes when the work is yours, say no when it belongs to someone else, and keep the people who understand that difference close. If this is the kind of story you want more of, where we follow the quiet choices that shape loud careers, please like this video, subscribe to Turkish Spotlight Secrets, and consider clicking join so we can keep bringing you long-form pieces that value context over noise. And now tell me in the comments, would you have made the same decision in Alina's place? Is there a role you've said no to in your own life so you could say yes to a better version of yourself later? Your answers turn this channel into a conversation, not just a feed. Thank you so much for watching my video. See you in the next one. Take care, and goodbye.